8 years ago say they're doing the census to track where you live to mark your house for drone strikes. And then now they admitted that the military's been given all that data. They're now arming drones. So it's easy to make fun of him, but I got to tell you, he's willing to really say what he thinks. And so much of what he said has turned out to be true. SteveQuayle.com, host of the Q Files, joins us. Steve, thank you for coming on. I'm not even going to throw out a bunch of issues. I got a bunch of questions for you, but front and center, you've got the floor here for the balance of the hour, the next 15 minutes. What do you want to say about the world meltdown of the markets, about the shooting, about what is this distracting us from? Donald Trump, where is it all? ISIS spreading all over the world. Steve Quayle.
Well, Alex, thank you, and good afternoon to all info warriors all around the world. What's going on right now is pretty critical. First of all, I think the idea that we're in full motion gun control and confiscation. Alex, when we signed on, the United States under Obama signed under the Small Arms Convention Treaty, what most people fail to understand is all of the NATO troops that are here, all of the Russian, Chinese, are here to basically do two things: to assert their domination control of the United States and also to disarm. I was told years ago, went on the radio, may have said it on your show, but basically part of the agreement between the U.S. government and China to continue buying our debt was that we would agree to, allow the disarmament of the entire American citizenry. You remember the flack I got? Well, there are 300 million guns in the United States, blah, blah, blah. But what most people don't understand is during the census, and you just brought that up in your opening to me, is that everybody who was a known gun owner was GPSed. Most people didn't understand the term yard farming in those days. It was Greg Evenson who brought that up. I want on record, yard farming means literally using drone strikes against American citizens. So many people thought that was outlandish. So many people thought that I'd gone over the edge and that basically I was a fear porn purveyor, I was a Armageddonite. But all those things now are coming to be into the focus to prove that that's really the plan. With the advent of all the forest fires in the Northwest, this was part of the plan also that and what is his name, and Anatoly Golitsyn wrote about in two of his books, which basically are going right by the script, and one of them was New Lies for Old and the Perestroika Deception. The bottom line in both of that was the Russians faked their own demise to get investment in the West and still having the plan. Now, listen, I'm going to quote somebody that I used to quote all the time in the first 10 years that I was on talk radio, by a guy named, I think it was Boris Manuilsky. And he was a professor at the Lenin School of Political Warfare in Moscow. So many people don't get the big picture. I pray, by the grace of God, I can give them the big picture. The bourgeois will have to be put to sleep. So shall we begin by launching the most spectacular peace movement on record. The capitalist countries, stupid and decadent, will rejoice to cooperate in their own discretion. They will leap at another chance to be friends. So we've all heard that Lenin said that, the West will sell the East the rope in which to hang themselves. But I think what's happening now is in order to understand the New World Order, people must get the basic. It's simply this. All borders, nationalities, cultures, and language must basically be done away with. The elite literally have no problem talking about the death of 6 billion people.
And that's why, just to interrupt, they do things that are unconstitutional, that are unpopular, and aren't even law because they say they've got the international treaties. And you mentioned this. I want to throw this out. This is out of Bloomberg News. China sells U.S. treasuries to support their yuan. That is an unprecedented move. So there's also some infighting, but it's globalist multinationals controlling Russia, controlling China, controlling the U.S., playing us off against each other, but that's the unseen hand. Correct, Steve?
Absolutely. And the thing is that even in the famous statement, that some argue over on the 3 great world wars, which would be fomented, obviously we're talking about Mazzini's letter that is absolutely Albert Pike, whether you want to believe it or not you, Alex, but whether the people want to believe it or not, wars don't just happen. They're staged to happen. And one of the critical points that I must get out on your show today, and again, thank you for letting me back on. I apologize to you. Yesterday was a screw-up, a mix-up, and someone I had told Nico was intentionally screwing with my email and our ability to contact each other. But that just tells me that the time frame has moved way up. I got an email before going on the air tonight that basically said, or this afternoon, excuse me, I'm used to doing late night talk radio, is that from a National Guard guy who basically said, we're worried that we're going to be shipped overseas and that all the foreign troops that have been training here are going to be given the go-ahead. Now, whether people want to admit it or not, one of the purposes of whether they're a false flag, real shooting, MK Ultra, mind control-y, disenfranchised video game player. Most of these trained killers have multiple identities. And you and I have talked about mind control, MK Ultra, until we're blue in the face, but evidently most people still don't get it. Remember, it's not what really happens that counts. It's what's made to look like what they want to happen that counts. So again, the mass media, and again, to go on record, I believe they are nothing more than vomit brokers. You're seeing that play out daily.
Steve Quayle, stay there. Stay there. We're going to come right back and continue with where you see the world going straight ahead. And then later in the next hour, we're going to open the phones up for your questions for Steve Quayle. I'm Alex Jones. I started getting politically involved, a little bit more savvy. I was like a mainline libertarian till about 93, 94. I was in college then. And I remember hearing, you know, they got Russian troops, they got Chinese troops, they're training them. And I think these old-timers, mainly military vets, are crazy. I wasn't disliking military vets. I just thought they were paranoids. And then they'd have black helicopter drills all over Texas and blowing up buildings, people having heart attacks. Folks would cover it, and they'd get death threats. And I got on air, and I'd cover it, and there'd be military in plain clothes threatening me in the parking lot. Like, you better watch it, buddy, and it'd be military guys in plain clothes. And then I had people pull guns on me and just everything else just because I was covering it. And I was like, wow, this whole thing's real. Then I became a source for people to be able to get info out. I started getting, you name it, NSA stuff, just crazy. I mean, I was being educated by my audience. And then there's Steve Quayle going, they're training Russian troops at this base outside Denver and this base outside Colorado Springs. And they're training them under secret treaties for gun confiscation. I'm like, that's just can't be true. And then now, 2 years ago and last year, it comes out in the Denver Post. It comes out in AP. We'll put them on screen. Russian troops trained to fight domestic terrorists in America. And you're like, but we're at war with Russia. Well, it's all part of these treaties. So they have to let the U.S. over there. They're over here. There's Fox News. And this is really going on. It's why the Chinese have been given the Panama Canal. It's globalism. It's part of this balance of power. There's a lot of double crossing going on, major drills against the Chinese right now. What do you think, in the 4 minutes we've got to break, Steve Quayle, then we'll come back and you can flesh stuff out. How do you see the power structure set up in the world, and what do you think's going on right now? Because clearly there's the most action I've ever seen going on, and massive amounts of foreign troops. Even Washington Post admits, quote, Canadian and Mexican troops will be used during martial law for, quote, civil unrest. I mean, this is in the newspapers. What's going on?
Well, obviously, Alex, it takes money to fund terrorism. Remember this. Terrorism is always someone's army. That's a statement that I stand by for the past 25 years. Talk radio. Let's take ISIS, one of the most well-funded, well-equipped, savvy international oil investors, currency manipulators, drug dealers, and all that. Who does that sound like? That sounds like a very sophisticated, intelligence-generated, and coordinated effort to destabilize the United States. When you and I started talking years ago that, listen, the globalists are serious. What's concerning to me the most is that the Americans don't get this, that they're already on the chopping block. And see, that's the critical issue here. Things have escalated. It is my intent to make it clear, by the grace of God today, we are absolutely in that pre-positioning of an attack by Russia and China. You brought up the amount of money that China is dumping to support the yuan. You brought up all these things. But
the elites are scurrying out of the U.S. at record rates. That's even in mainstream news?
absolutely. What happens? Well, the old statement, rats abandoning ship, Well, they abandon it in their Gulf Streams and in their, $200 and $300 million yachts. But those in the know obviously go. Those who are, how should I say this, ignorant, stay. But and this is what I'm not talking about anybody fleeing the country. But what I'm saying is that, people have got to recognize this is, as you have so appropriately entitled it, this is the end game in play. Everything up until the time, Alex, that you've been on radio, I've been on radio, others have been on radio warning, that's all past now. We aren't approaching the cliff. We're over the cliff. It's just like an avalanche, okay? And what is terrifying is that people are going to get caught in the avalanche. I talk to so many investors. I talk to women trying to...
Stay there. I want to hear from your intel and your gut where you think the economy's going, how this is happening, and how we can have a soft landing maybe and not have this happen. Because we know we've been holding it back. I mean, the people that love liberty worldwide, good people in government mainly, corporations, they're good. We have good people everywhere. That's the only reason this hasn't come down yet. I just got chills. You can feel the evil right now. Now into hour number 3, Steve Quayle is our guest. You can find his books and films at stevequayle.com. In fact, towards the end of the interview, we're going to talk some about some of the really wild stuff he gets into, studying ancient history, what the elites are suppressing in his research, and what he's discovered about, these ancient legends. In fact, briefly, Steve, well, we'll get to that towards the end of the show, but it's very, very exciting. Now, Steve, going back to you right now, looking at the economy, looking at the world, looking at the huge stock market manipulations, huge military forces of the U.S., naval forces off the coast of China right now today, massive things happening. What point are we at now, and who are the power players? What's going on?
Well, first of all, I believe there was a time when we could have made a difference. Now, I want to make sure everyone understands. I'm not saying abandon hope, ye who enter here into the world of what's really going on. But understand your number one priority, your priority is to get prepared for they're going to crash the financial system. Alex, you have every monetary authority in the world on your show, over the years. I've interviewed some really incredibly bright people. But now, when you had the 1,200-point day down, we all knew Black Monday was coming. Good night. Who didn't warn about it, pretty much? And the circuit breakers kicking in 1,200 times. The issue is that was nothing more than a manipulated event to make a lot of people a lot of money. One question that's not being asked, Alex, is all the losers, we know who lost the money, but who were the gainers? I tell people, follow the money. That still works. The gainers were the ones who manipulated. Find the short sellers on the Dow, and you'll find out who did it. Obviously, Soros is being blamed for a large part of it, but it goes even beyond him. And what's happening now is that, look, it's just like there was a story written today by, I think, Chuck Baldwin, and he's quoting the Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Nizovich or something, showing hands on his hips, standing on the top of the Don't Tread on Me or the Gadsden flag, the title, Daring to Tread. And he's making the statement, Alice, what you and I have warned about, and you brought it out first on the Mayak report. The sheriff and at least one of his deputies have verbalized opinions that constitutionalists are threats to the sheriff's office, the federal government, and to the country itself. He went so far as to compare constitutionalists with a Sunni Muslim terror group, ISIS. Now, again, I talked years and years ago, you probably heard me say this, identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. Okay, we're in the identification, we're in the vilification.
That's right. They've been secretly gearing up to come after us. Now they're getting ready to roll out, which is, you talk about giving the sheriff's deputies a mission that's not going to end too well. This is crazy.
Yeah, and they can't even quote where you live or whoever they're complaining about. The point being is that this is the attitude. So here's what I want to make people understand. The American people still believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Those of us who still believe in the living God know there's right and wrong. But in the age of what I call relativistic takedown of the country, Alex, when we hear the head of Planned Parenthood saying they want 50 livers to experiment on, and I read about ancient history, the practices even of burning babies babies in the arms of Molech or sacrificing babies for the Phoenicians on their anchor ropes. That's what they did. The point is that we stood by as a nation knowing this stuff was going on, and now where are we at? We're at a point where we didn't care about human life, and now everyone who didn't care, they're in the sights. You know, how many of those people that were aborted could have changed everything? So here's what I think, and I'll be as blunt as I know how and as prescient as I can be. We are headed for a manufactured World War III. In order for the New World Order to bring on their Messiah, we call him the Antichrist, meaning in place of Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I came, you received me not, another will come claiming to be me. Well, this is what the globalists, the Satanists, and you know, it's now coming into your full focus to realize the supernatural evil.
That's right. Stay there. Gotta go to break. Steve Quayle. Here's what happens with social engineering. By successive approximation or incrementalism, we get conditioned to put up with more and more. Fluoride in the water, forced inoculations, GMO that sterilizes and kills many of the rodents they feed it to, that farmers won't give their farm animals because they die when they eat it. The honeybees are dying. 90+% of the nuclear reactors worldwide are leaking. It's not even news anymore. They're supposed to be shut down after 30 years. Most of them are almost 40 years old. They just don't care. They're geoengineering. They're telling us that you can't say father and mother. Public schools are banning it all over the country. New buildings put in communal bathrooms where you now walk into one and there's a woman in there and you're like, oh, and they go, oh, it's okay. I mean, we're just being messed with. We're being social engineered. They give Stinger missiles to Al-Qaeda. And now the French news says they're bracing for terror attacks there. Meanwhile, they're in the news saying the Pentagon's preparing for war with the Tea Party. Now, we broke this, the details, the proof many years ago. Quayle from Sources talked about it before that. Mark Kornke and so many others. But people say, when's it all coming? The New World Order's here. It's here. When they blame gun owners for a mass shooting or they blame the rebel flag for a mass shooting, it's here. When they're openly selling babies and keeping babies alive and dissecting them, and then it's like, oh, big deal. Our conscience has been seared. We've been conditioned. I myself have just gotten conditioned to where I hear, oh, the major corporations making their employees take chips in their necks to get into work in Europe. Oh, big deal. I didn't even cover it on air a month ago when it was in the news because I knew it was coming 20 years ago. Now it's here. I'm like, okay. You see? So it's just the continued conditioning, and then to now have this sheriff who's a microcosm in Spokane, we have this all over the country, getting giant armored vehicles, and the news with a straight face goes, because how do they segue from there's no armored vehicles, we're not targeting constitutionalists, to, yeah, they really are dangerous and bad. They warned this was coming. It's here now. The deputy says it's for us. They say it all over the country. We say it's bad, so they go, look, see, they are bad. We need the armored vehicle because they said that we were getting the armored vehicle for them, but we did get it for them because they're bad. Because they're bad because they're right. And then he lies about us and says InfoWars is death threatening. And they're doing this all over the country. I played the clips yesterday. I'm not going to play them again. Where they sit there saying, we have these for the veterans. We have these for the gun owners. We have these for the conservatives. This is like Hitler saying we have these for the communists. We have these for the Jews. We as a political movement, Americana, I'm a liberal in the sense of Thomas Jefferson. I believe in live and let live. I'm not getting in your business if you don't get in mine. The problem is we didn't get in their business. They took over, and now they're getting in our business. And so I'm begging you to realize that we need alarmists like Steve Quayle. We need to be concerned. Well, Matt Drudge a year ago said Americans really should have an exit strategy to get out of the country. On a Twitter, people made fun of that. The elite are leaving. It's in the London Guardian, the Associated Press. I don't know what exactly is coming. I know that they were in the newspapers last week again and on TV saying, I'm behind the Boston bombing. My lawyer says I could win a lawsuit, but I don't have time to spend all my energy on that. I have to just take the hits, move forward as a vanguard. But everything is escalating. I don't know if it's going to trigger next month, next year. I don't know. But things are exponential. And the Democratic Party with the Republican leadership has made the decision to be willfully totalitarian and evil. You get around Democratic Party operatives, not your average Democrat who's a nice person. And Republicans are nice people, too. Their leadership's just as bad. But the Democrats, they're their vanguard. And when you get around these people, I want Steve Quayle's take on this, they are consciously evil. They know they're taking over. They're just a criminal group like ISIS. That's why they work with ISIS. They are getting ready for something big. It's why suddenly communist rallies that have been deactivated to tell us that didn't exist for 20 years are suddenly, I've been in New York, I've been in Europe, I've been in Austin, Texas, and other places, and people I know have been seeing it too, and you'll just be at a cafe and communists march by with 100 red flags. And suddenly devil worshippers are showing up everywhere at Planned Parenthoods worshiping killing babies. I mean, you've seen it with us show up, and these people literally crawl out from under rocks and just start saying, I'm ugly, I'm fat, Satan, kill babies, ah! And in the State House, they're just women dressed in normal dresses, just spontaneously. News talked to them. They didn't know each other. They were just drawn like zombies, like spirits, to just go, hail Satan, Satan, ah! And drowned out prayer meetings. Women just came out of their offices and like zombies went downtown, didn't know why they were there, just Satan, Satan, Satan. And I'm realizing when I sit back and I look at this, I go, what is this? It's like a movie. It's like we got possessed or something. And then those of us that see it and don't like it, they go, oh, you're a terrorist. You're going to kill people. We've got to arrest you. And then we get official re-education camp manual. Steve Quayle of SteveQuayle.com. I apologize for ranting for 5 minutes. Go ahead to the break, 6 minutes away. What do you say to that? Who are the players? What is the end game? You were saying it's spiritual.
Right, it's spiritual because, you know, I've written about stargates, and by the way, I just want to tell people this. It's important to what we're talking about, Alex. We've uploaded for subscription. You can download it, pay to download it, the DVD True Legends. And why this is critical, okay, is it's really critical for people to understand that. And one of the revelations in that, and it's shown amazing 90 minutes, we actually believe now that through some pretty amazing genius-level mathematicians and Tim Alberino being down with the film crew and, you know, South American stuff, we actually believe we have found the fallen angels linguistics. And I'll let people go on it and see it. But what's going to be important, let me tell you why this is important. Because the spiritual nature of the battle, when the Satanists come out, you know, during World War II, you and I did a show, I don't know, 10 years ago about this when I wrote a book called Breathe No Evil. But Dr. Ishi, ISHI, and Unit 731 were tried for war crimes for the live vivisections on human beings. By the way, that's why the Chinese, one of the main reasons the Chinese hate the Japanese so much, the atrocities under Japan were just horrific. So China has a historic, I would say, precedent for payback. But saying all that, that is a war crime, yet we do not criminalize the death. Now, when I'm hearing that they have live babies that they're giving over to the experimenters, and when I hear that the American citizens are eating all of the, if you will, baby parts in all the lists of the food companies and everything, you can understand something. They want us changed at a genetic level. They want us so isolated and so non-human that all of the normal God-given qualities of compassion, of love, of understanding, of forgiveness, they don't want that, okay? They want a totalitarian hellhole. Back to the United States, what was the name of the survey that you and I broke on air? I sent you an email. We talked about it. Remember the one that showed the population of America taken down to 80, 90 million?
Absolutely. That was put out by the government. And expanding on this, whether we believe in all this or not, the elites believe in the angels, the stargates, the occult. They believe they're getting their power from it. And regardless, with the chimeras, with the cross-species creations, with baby brains put in rats, with octopuses crossed with humans, all this is being done in labs, admitted now. These are new creatures. They're creating aliens right here on this planet.
Yes, they are. And see, the reason for that is God created mankind in his image and likeness. People can argue about it, but all the creative genius all the magnificent things, and there have been magnificent things that men in their honor of God. Look at this. They kick God out, no prayer in school. Now they kick God out of everything, the universities, which most even Christians send their kids to.
Now they say don't say mother or father. Now they say purple penguin.
Right. Well, our children are trying to be taught to choose sexuality at 4 years old. Vladimir Putin and his young wolves are, stripping AK-47s blindfolded. ISIS is teaching, and I'm not in favor of this.
That's right. They're teaching 7-year-olds how to strip AK-47s blindfolded and march in the snow. Our 4-year-olds are learning how to give a blowjob.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry it has to be stated that way, but here's the deal.
Yeah, I apologize too, but that's what they're teaching 5-year-olds.
Yep, they are. And see, here's the thing. Human sexuality, and boy, we could do a show on that, and I promise you a different take, and it wouldn't be X-rated. But the problem with human sexuality has been taken over by the I would say this, the fallen angel perverts. And I document all this stuff. By the way, one of the most astonishing revelations coming from 1545 was the fact that God himself sent an angel to sway, and I'm going to say this, the homosexual giants and the 1545 to 1600 chroniclers absolutely, said this was a given fact. Even the Native Americans who were non-Christians at that time, obviously I'm talking about Peru, Bolivia, they chronicled this in all of their myths and legends. So here's the deal. We are now seeing a spirit of supernatural perversion. What is it? If anybody, and I don't want to go into detail, but anybody who understands Satanism, they have to desecrate, denigrate. They have to offer blood sacrifices. They have to ritualize sodomy. They've got to do all that because ultimately it's destroying the image and likeness of God. So when the Christians and what I call the jellyfishes in the pulpit, those would be the pastors that have as much spine as a jellyfish, that they float, in the ocean, and they sting everybody with their poison. Sorry, that's how I see it. And
I hear you. Listen, it's really far out, but when you read the Old Testament, it describes these giants coming out of flying saucers, raping everybody, and then now you see the elite trying to cross species everybody. Whether people think it's real or not, it's manifesting now. Why do we have legends about this? Maybe this isn't a good idea to be teaching kids they're purple penguins. Steve Quayle's on about geopolitical issues. He's super on target with those. He gets into a lot of wild stuff, investigates archaeological sites. It's really interesting. True Legends, the documentary film series, available on DVD or for download, and it's really professional. And I've seen it. It's pretty amazing. Available at stevequayle.com. That's another show entirely. I know this. The whole Promethean legend, the movie Prometheus, Time magazine even reports that most genetic engineers and others believe that we were seeded from space now. They've abandoned the theory of evolution as it's promoted. I don't go where I can't prove stuff. I have Army manuals admitting they're training to put us in FEMA camps that are at army.mil. And I can have Nightline here and hand them the document, and they just won't look at it. The public listening can't believe that. So, but I know I've studied Aztec, Mayan, Mesoamerican culture. They believe that gods came from the heavens and seeded us here. The elites believe it, the Egyptians, others. And I know that it's Skull and Bones and Bohemian Grove and the occult, that they believe that they are channeling goddesses and entities from other dimensions. They believe they're doing that at CERN. They believe they're going to find the God particle. So whether it's real or not, I don't think we can criticize Steve Quayle for looking into it, because when you ask what is the elite main agenda, it is to be God, and they have been splicing humans with cows, pigs, you name it, to grow babies in utero for organ harvesting of larger humanoids. Then they argue that the humanoid has no rights because it's part bovine or part porcine, pig, or part pinniped. They've put them in seals as well. And look, I talk about this 16, 17, 18, 19 years ago. People didn't believe it. It was in industry papers then. Now it's mainstream news. I mean, I talk about spider goats 20 years ago before it was in the news. People thought I was a liar. But then for like 18 years, it's been in the news. Goats that are part spider that produce body armor in their milk. So if that's not alien, I don't know what is. We live on a planet Who knows what's going on? But Steve, we're going to come back and take phone calls, get into the economy, geopolitics, Donald Trump, other things that are closer to home. But the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231 for your question, specifically or comment for Steve Quayle. 800-259-9231. Wide open phones, a free-for-all. But in the 3-4 minutes we have to break, currently geopolitically, Russia, China, the U.S., aren't they just different power blocks played off against each other, but with the same globalist operatives in quasi-control of all three?
Right. Probably that's true, but people can't identify a supernatural, if you will, brilliance orchestrating evil. Now, Alex, I deal in that whole statement. Obviously, the Illuminati is going to say we were seeded by aliens. It's called panspermia. The Vatican is getting ready to baptize aliens. Where I differ from all those guys is this. Well, it's easy for them to claim the Anunnaki, name them whatever, the gods. Actually, the Pentagon's I think the Pentagon's official name for them is the Sumerian gods. All those things are fallen angels masquerading as something. The Bible's very clear. I believe that, obviously God created Adam and Eve, not, somebody from the planet Antares. But in order to deceive, in order to seduce, in order to destroy, the fallen angels have perpetrated, have populated the planet, and even all the Mesoamericans recorded, Native Americans record, the star people. So what greater lie? And I tell people this, Alex, when people say, why won't they talk about all the giants that are found? Why do they hide the bones? Why do they hide all of the evidence, Steve, that you and the ancient writers, I'm not ancient yet, but I will obviously become ancient sometime. The idea is simply this, Alex. It's the greatest deception in the history of the universe. If someone says the aliens created mankind, I said, then who created the aliens? You see, because the law first mentioned. So what I'm trying to get people to understand is that we're seeing the Pope show up on the 23rd of September, and the Vatican, Tom Horn, has done an amazing job of basically writing out the Vatican's own statements on the aliens and that they will baptize aliens. And then the idea, can you have an alien saved by Jesus? The answer to that is no, because Jesus didn't die for the angels that sinned. He died for mankind. Jesus absolutely makes that clear. So look at the attack on Jesus. Anything is fair game, and you know this. See, the spiritual realm is coming into the visible physical realm. Book of Revelation states, woe unto you inhabitants of the earth, for the devil, your adversary, has come down, knowing he has but a short time. People can't separate the wrath of God, which is at the end of the tribulation, from the wrath of Satan. They try and make them the same thing as, yeah.
I mean, I know this. I mean, even if you were an atheist, if I was an atheist, which I'm not, researching this, I would discover the elite believe they are being influenced by interdimensional creatures that give them special knowledge to be in